Most deck builders walk away from a finished job and never look back. I've seen what happens to those decks 2 years later, and that's why before I walk away from any project, I always check these 5 things. So railing is a really important part of your deck. It has to be sturdy and stable, and you gotta be able to bounce up against it and not fall off the deck to your death, right? So I always like to go through and just make sure that everything has the proper fasteners in it. Now, if we don't do some of this immediately, we know we're gonna have a problem. But if I pick up this base plate cover, you can see that we do have the right fasteners in here. We have the right amount of fasteners in the post, but also want to make sure we go through and double check and make sure we have the right fasteners into the post for our top rails and so on and so forth. And that means front and back. Just being sure that we have the right amount of connectors that is by the manufacturer's installation recommendation is important so that we don't have any issues with railing in the future. The last building inspection we had, the inspector, not only did he check for height this way to make sure that we're at least 36 inches. Now our railing is 36 1/4, so we're definitely within code there, that it's code compliant. He also wanted to measure these cables because he felt if the cables are too far apart, that children can still get through it. For us in our region, cable rails are really hot, popular railing, and if I didn't do it, I probably wouldn't have as many projects as I do. And it is really stout, probably more stout than most of the rails that we install. I'm confident that this is finished properly. The most important thing that I always double check before we leave is making sure that the ledger connection is proper and that the joists are connected to the ledger properly as well. As you can see, there's lots of correct fasteners installed, 3 spaced equally every 16 inches. These nails here were already installed and each hole is filled. Even if you have an existing deck, I've gone on bids before where I've gone out and seen decks, the joist hangers aren't properly attached, they aren't using the correct fasteners, or they're just missing fasteners altogether. That can be a recipe for tragedy. As an example, somebody was building a brand new deck, they broke for lunch and they had hung the ledger temporarily with just a couple nails. They came back from lunch and they started hanging all the joists up. They finished the deck and then the owner came out and the deck collapsed because they didn't put the right amount of fasteners in the ledger and she broke her back. That's just one story. There's deaths every year because of failures of deck ledger to house. It's the most important connection that you're gonna make. So make sure it's done right and make sure it's done properly. I wanna make sure that this house is sealed up so that no water gets into the area of the flashing. Now to prevent that, a lot of people will say, okay, it kind of depends on your siding. If you're gonna leave this bead, we always seal underneath our doors, okay? Right now, none of this is done. So the first layer of protection is gonna be a good bead of clear sealant against the door, and I'm gonna also put it at the base of the wall, right here on this trim. Because what's happening is the water's going through here. It was raining so hard and splattering so much, the water was traveling, going behind underneath this seal right here. And there is flashing here, which is great. So what I'm gonna do, I like to use painter's tape because I like to have a nice clean bead when I'm done and lay that down. You wanna make sure you leave enough for the sealant to stick to because the goal is to shoot it in this crack. I'm using Lexel made by Sashco. It says it sticks to almost anything. It's a crystal clear sealant and it's not silicone. And with this product, I've noticed you definitely want to tool this stuff quickly. Instead of running a 20-foot bead, I might only run 4 feet and then I'll go ahead and tool it out. Once we have a nice bead and we've tooled it out, I like to remove the tape as quickly as possible because if you let it tack up, sometimes when you pull the tape, it sticks to the sealant. I'm gonna go ahead and rip the tape. Look at that nice clean bead. And that's that. Now that's protected, especially from the rain. Like we get a lot of rain here. I don't know if you guys know that or not. So anything that we can do preventatively to keep the moisture away from the side of the house or from going into that flashing or into that ledger space, we want to keep it away as much as possible. So that's what we're doing right there. We'll do these doors, we'll tape it all off, we'll get a nice bead in there, we'll pull the tape, and then on to the next section. All right, I'm on the hunt and I'm looking for any imperfections in the surface of the deck that may need to be adjusted or possibly replaced. And I have found my victim right here. Okay, so this plug is a little too low. So you can see one right next to it. This one's a tidge high. This one's easily fixed by just tapping on it. But then we're gonna pull this plug and put a new one in and get this a little bit more set to surface. So this is one thing that I always do before I leave when I'm finished with the deck, is make sure all the surface fasteners look good. So I'm gonna go ahead and tap this one down. And now we're gonna pull this one. Okay, I'm gonna take a screw. I'm gonna put it right through the middle of the plug. You gotta do this carefully because you can mess it up. And then you pull it out. Now that plug's no good, you can't use it again. That's no big deal because we have a whole strip of them. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in and just lightly tap it so that it doesn't go in too deep. And I see another one right here. The depth is good, but the grain isn't quite the same as the rest of the deck. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this one and then take a new plug and I'm gonna line that grain up and then you tap it in. There you go. So while I was searching around the deck for fasteners that may not be properly installed, I ran across something that makes me a little bit upset, and I hate seeing because we just built this deck and we just finished it, and you can kind of see there's a couple of like small scratches in the deck here. Those can just visually look bad in a deck. So one way that we can rectify some of these scratches is by using a heat gun and waving it across the scratch, and then it'll disappear or minimize the look of the scratch. We're gonna fire this up. Sometimes it may take more than one pass to get them to erase, but I could barely see where that is now, where it stuck out clearly to me before. So the TimberTech PVC AZEC works really well with a heat gun. You can put some heat to it, not too much, don't overdo it, but it does erase scratches fairly easily. Take a look up here, and what do you see? There's some exposed G-tape or waterproof membrane tape that we use to protect these beams, and it's just hanging down a little bit past our fascia boards. What we like to do is after we're done with the trim work, if there's anything hanging down past that, we want to clean that up. The G-tape's protecting what's behind here, which is the important part, but it needs to be done. It's mostly cosmetic. We just take a blade and we go in and we just trim it up so it's nice and tight to our frame. And then we'll peel this away. Now, obviously this has been painted before, so I've already discussed it with the client. They're gonna get some color matched paint, so it'll look really nice. Once I've checked all these things and they meet my standards, it will get my stamp of approval. My ultimate goal is to give the client a really high quality project that I never have to come back and do a repair on, because I double checked everything and made sure it was done right the first time.